I mean, there's a reason why nightclubs are not around at the moment. They're not around because, as I said, why did you go to a nightclub? Being frankly honest, right? Okay, this is not to say anybody runs it like that, but you go for sex because you want to meet somebody and have a shag or fall in love or whatever. In those times, if you were a prevalent for drugs, you try and find a dealer or something like that, or you go to the pub and find a dealer, and of course music. Well, as I say, what can't you do on your phone now? Tinder. Most people, I mean, the extraordinary things that come up on WhatsApp. I can't believe that the police don't nick people. And you can get everything literally sitting where we are. And I think the demographic of youth has changed because, you know, when we went on and I stopped being a bit rock and roll and went into doing the Embassy Club and Sugar Reef. Sugar Reef I did with Marco Pierre and Gary Holyhead, the chef, who's still with me today. And we had the Spice Girls and Oliver, you know, and you know, all the film people and Robbie Williams and the Beckhams and Madonna and fucking everybody. I mean, I remember one time I fell down the stairs and I fell over a Chelsea football player, Dennis was, he is little, and straight into and knocked over David Beckham and then landed on Victoria Beckham's lap via Jerry Halliwell. And you're like, oh, sorry. Right, but it's the most bizarre thing that it's knee deep, and that era was everything was led because of the famous people that you had.
When you realised that was the thing, how did you then cultivate it? If it was like started accidentally,
yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's when you realise it, and it's actually when other people realise it, and then you suddenly. I mean, listen, when we opened Sugar Reef, this is a terrible story, great luck for me, but an awful story. That we made the front page of the Evening Standard because Rod Stewart was going out with a Caprice, the lingerie model, and nobody had their picture, and they were told to pop round to the club because it was a new place. They didn't realise it was knee deep in paparazzi. They were front page of every newspaper. The very next day, there was a terrible train crash, and the reality is if the train crash had happened on the same day as my launch, there would be no picture. But it was the fascination of, you know, if you think about the fascination of celebrity and everything else. But actually, the weird thing is that then suddenly you're like, oh, fuck, it's a Tuesday and there's nobody here. Oh, that's because this club has got the Chelsea football party, or, you know, or Madonna's there, or this, that, and the other. And then you suddenly realize that all these promoters start appearing and they've all their best mates. One of them's Jason Statham and this, that, and the other. And then it becomes mercurial. Of course it does, because then you're paying promoters to bring people in, and somewhere along the line, clubs started paying to bring girls in. I mean, I don't understand that on a business level. That in general terms, you open a place and you charge entrance fee. You don't normally pay people to come in, but that's what it got to.
What would the entrance fees have been back then?
20, 30, 15, 20, that sort of thing. I don't know what it is now. Probably about the same. I mean, when I was first in nightclubs, you know, a tequila and orange was about £7.50. It's not. I mean, it's gone backwards now. It's probably was about 3 times the price at one point. But the whole ethos has changed. It's become venue. You know, clubs have become venues. Nightclubs are not needed anymore. But the nightclub industry killed itself. You know, I remember when we were at Sugar Reef, and it's 1,000 capacity, and the restaurant was 700, and the club was 300. Sorry, wrong way around. The club was 700, and I walked down into the VIP area, and there's all these fucking sofas there, right? And I'm thinking, it's like, what the fuck are all the sofas out? We need to move everything around because we've got to get people. And they go, oh no, that sofa's been sold for £5,000. I said, what are you talking about? I only paid 500 quid for it. He said, no, we've sold that sofa to some footballer to sit down for £5,000. And I'm like, really? And then when we move, and that whole culture of the table, and I mean, I don't really get it because, listen, I got it because I got the money. But what, you know, which bit about paying £10,000 for 6 sticky seats in a nightclub, being served a bottle of champagne and a bottle of vodka that you know at Tesco's is 37 quid makes your penis any bigger? I've got no idea. But that was the culture, and I, you know, I'm sitting there, and you know, I'm walking into after Sugar Reef, we did Red Cube as well with Marco in Leicester Square. And then Gary Holyhead and I went on and did the Embassy Club. And, you know, I'm sitting there on a Saturday night going, my girl going, we've taken 40 grand. I said, but there's nobody here. They said, yeah, 40 grand in tables, taking it up front. right? Which is the most ridiculous. I'm thinking, fine, I'll go home. I'm not required. But of course, any good thing can be copied. I was somebody confirmed me as the king of tits in football, because I had all the models, and I had all the footballers, and I had all the rock stars and everything else, and everywhere else they had, this, that. Although I did manage to cross over and get Prince William and Prince Harry, which was gold dust in those days, getting them in there. But the point is that then everyone realizes it's celebrity. Then, of course, the mercurial thing, what happens is again, you pay a promoter and he gives you a successful night. Then he wants you to pay for the girls. So if you say no, he goes to a different club, right? And if you want to bet, you got to do more. Then they want free vodka. Then they want you to pay for a celebrity, and then suddenly they're paying for celebrities. I mean, at the point, my business partner, Andy Taylor, ran Sanctuary Music, and he was managing Elton, Beyonce, Destiny's Child, Guns N' Roses, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, Iron Maiden, The Who, and weirdly Wasp and Josh Stone. And it was the Brits, and Beyonce was in town, so I phoned up Matthew Knowles, her father, and I went, listen, Matthew, given that we're all on the same side here, can we do a Brits party for Beyonce, and can she pass by? And he went, yeah, mate, no problem, no problem at all, just give me 50 grand. I said, sorry? He said, well, Ministry of Sound are giving us 100. He said, because you're family, you just give me 50 grand. I said, you know what, I can do without Beyonce. But it got to that, so people, so you monetize it and everything else, which is understandable. But of course, it then rolls out when you get a recession. And of course, in those days as well, there was should we call it the grey market? The grey market where credit cards weren't really checked, where when you got a lease on a car, you didn't necessarily have to prove that you actually had the money for it. So you could drive around in your Porsche on a Thursday night. There was a lot of drugs going on and all that sort of stuff, all around clubs. It was really prevalent. Somebody said to me the other day, there was a lot of prostitution going on. I personally never came across it, but I suppose effectively girls coming into a bar, sitting and drinking for nothing, and then going off with someone. There is some upside, isn't there? There's got to be, isn't there? Rather than just a footballer. But it all changed, because obviously economies came, economies went, moods went, clubs only lasted, big clubs lasted 3 to 6 months. Then there was somebody else, then somebody was introducing a new laser floor, and then there was, and then the new Beyonce is opening it, and then this, that, and the other, and then it's Kate Moss, and and then blah blah blah, and then gradually it burnt out, and we get to the point now where via COVID, what's the reason for a nightclub? The only reason for a nightclub now really is the music. And actually what we've managed to do is that in those days, I mentioned Paul Oakenfold, of course, that was the only reason to go to nightclubs, not to just listen to a DJ, was to listen to a type of music and everything. And so we're now in this terrible quandary where nightclubs are not really required and clubs are not commercially viable.
I mean, we're literally going through that right now, because UPRAWR is a club, that's how we started, and we've done them all over the country. And up until COVID, we used to do lots of different promotions all around dozens of different things, different themes. And now it's solely just blending music genres. And we can't do any other promotion or any other sort of incentive, because, as you said, there is no other reason for anyone to come.
No, because, okay, the high-end clubs where you pay, I'm sure there's still people paying a lot of money, but, recently, I know it's a bit out of context, but look at Annabelle's, which is a super fucking upmarket club full of, jolly posh people and all that sort of stuff, being delivered by stretch Rolls Royces and having 19 staff. And it's been a private members club, and they suddenly opened the restaurant to the public. Well, that's not because they're doing well, is it? Right. Okay. Most nightclubs are only open Thursday and Friday now, because people don't go out and they take it seriously. My son is 36. We've just 2 great grandkids. He, being the son of a nightclub owner, hasn't gone out for years. Gets a 6-pack, sits in the garden. There's no reason, and I think part of the reason that we've done, and it's the same for restaurants and life in general, is we priced ourselves out of our own market. Saying to somebody, you can sit in my nightclub next to Kate Moss and some super big-breasted Phase 3 models for £10,000, thank you very much, and I'm off to Harrods to get my new mink coat for my next girlfriend. eventually when there's not value for money, and then somebody says, well, you run out, and then suddenly you're sitting there thinking, certainly for me, I don't go to nightclubs anymore. I'm 60 odd, but you think, well, I can't be asked to go to a nightclub because it's too expensive. I mean, we live in Spain partially, and my wife says, let's go to Nicky Beach. And I said, well, why would I pay 500 quid for a bottle of champagne that I know is 100 euros, right? Because it's what I used to do. To be told not to look at girls in bikinis. But, so there is a reason for a day club, because you are going there, you're sitting there, you're looking at girls and this, that and the other, and you're dancing, and it's better than sitting on a sun lounger. But why would you? And if you look at the economy, whether it's Birmingham, whether it's, Manchester, whether it's London, it's not just about the nightclub. It's about the cab there. Fucking expensive. It's about getting in. Fucking expensive. It's about getting a drink. Fucking expensive. It's about getting home. Even more expensive. It's about, you pull a girl, really, really expensive. Buy some drugs, even more expensive. You could be, and then you get home, and which bit about is it enjoyable anymore? It's not the thing. So for me, what I'm seeing, even in here, is the Karma Sanctum Soho Hotel. It's about events. That's the only thing you and UPRAWR can do, and everything else is create events. The problem is if it's the same thing, it's not an event anymore, it's a one-nighter. But maybe we do go back to the one-nighters. The only thing I can think is, look, what can't you repeat? You can't repeat live music. And thankfully for me, now I'm in hotels, you always need somewhere to stay, and that's for sure. Everything else you can repeat. Even food you can repeat. You see, I mean, there we are. When I was with Marco Pierre White, I worked with Gordon Ramsay, Marco Pierre White, Joe Latunes.
What was the transition from the clubs into the restaurants?
Well, Marco made a very relevant point, you see, at that point. I know Marco since he was 19 years old, because he was shagging the lead singer, female, of the first band I ever managed, which is how I met him, right? And he was a sous chef at Le Gavroche at that point, and we've known each other for a long time. And he opened the Titanic, which is round the corner from here. And he said, Mark, the only reason why anybody goes out on Tuesday? To eat. And he has a fair point, right? It's very, very unlikely, unless it's your birthday, that you're going to have an event or go somewhere on a Tuesday. But you do, in those days, you went out for dinner. I mean, I don't see anybody goes out for dinner because it's too goddamn expensive as well, but that's a different story. But the whole, the whole thing, it morphs. So Titanic was the first hybrid supper, coming back supper. When I was a kid and I wanted to date a girl, I used to go to what was a dinner and dance place, because there were no, there was a gig or a dinner and dance place where a DJ went on and there was some flashing lights, and you had a bit of really crap dinner, prawn cocktail and a bit of steak and some Black Forest Gateau. And those days you didn't get a shag at least till the third or fourth date. The point is that Marco came up with this thing, and he was absolutely right. So if you've got a bunch of people having dinner on a Tuesday, you've got more chance of having a party because they've had a few drinks and everything else. So we created in Sugar Reef, in Red Cube, and in Titanic, and indeed at the Embassy, a sort of hybrid dinner and dance. Sugar Reef, we used to call it total entertainment and affordable glamour. Because you could come, you could have a cocktail, you could have a drink, you could have a cup of coffee, that you sat and had dinner, and then you went to the nightclub, then you went home. And when I moved one on, I foresaw the end of the big high end posh nightclubs, because we had two. We had Red Cube and we had Sugar Reef, and there were 2,000 people between them, and we were really struggling to get 2,000 people in 1,000 in each unit.
When was this? What year?
1999, long time ago, before you were born. But into 2000. But it was, even then, it was beginning to wane. It was just, it dissipated, and there were characters. There was me. There was Peter Stringfellow, may rest in peace. There was Johnny Gold. There were a few people that were hosting clubs and everything else. And it was a very personal thing. You came to door and you asked for Mark Fuller. When I sold Sugar Reef, I sold it to a corporation. I think they're still going, called Tiger. And I met the manager there, and he said, I fucking hate you. He said, I bought that place off you 3 years ago, and people still come to the door and ask for you. Right. But that's what it was. And that was what made the night. You came and you saw me, let's go see Mark and this and the other. And now it's just morphed into, as it should be. If they're a dance club and you're coming to listen to Paul Oakenfold play some amazing music, right? You're coming and it's a purist music event, and that's that. But one of the things that I have seen as well in live music venues, of course, with nobody drinking, bands need to make a lot of money now. So the bands get all the door, and the venue gets the bar. And if nobody drinks, doesn't really work, does it?
I mean, that's one of the other things that we find with the venue. And we have to be more and more selective with the bands that play because we only want the audiences that drink.
Well, interesting. I did 16 years in Hyde Park, did all the backstage for Hyde Park. And I know this sounds really weird, but of course, when the Hyde Park Festival started, which was, oh God, I can't remember what it was. There was Wireless and then there was Hard Rock. And of course, everybody flocked to Hyde Park to eat and drink in the first few years, before they realised that they were still in London and they could go to the fucking pub and get a drink at normal prices. But even then, we saw different disciplines. And I also did Download, the heavy metal festival up in Donington. And it depended on what bands played. So if I had Black Sabbath or Iron Maiden, everyone drunk. If I had Rage Against the Machine, weirdly, nobody drunk. If we had an R&B band in Hyde Park, which the local council hated.
And was this, put in the bars it in?
Yeah, I was doing all the backstage, did all the backstage hospitality and everything else, not in the front, not the front bit, and looked after the artists and everything else. But it was a big backstage, 5,000-10,000 corporate and everything. So you had, Pharrell Williams, and you'd sell a fortune in champagne, even though you had to decant it. You had Roger Waters and doing his Pink Floyd thing, and you'd sell a lot of wine. And you had Massive Attack, and they wouldn't drink anything at all because they're all on drugs. Or the smell of weed. You know what I mean? And you do the same, and you could absolutely tell it as well. But I think now, if you think about it, it's. I mean, I remember when we came out of Donington, they wanted to put Donington cashless, and I said, well, actually, that's really a really stupid thing to do, because if you think about it, you're going for a weekend to a festival and you pay 150 quid for your 3 days. Then you upgrade to VIP camping. So you're 250. I don't know what it costs, but that. Then you've got to buy your train ticket. Then you've got to think about your food and your tent and this, that, and the other. So you're 500 in, and then they're saying, oh, how much do you want to spend at the bar? And then you go, oh, fuck. Right. And the whole point about a bar, I don't know about you guys, but in my day was you went to a bar, you thought, I'll just have a drink. And then you came back going, oh my God, did I spend that much? And of course, the whole point about getting pissed is you don't realize what you're doing until the morning. But of course, if you're cashless and you've got to go and you've got to draw your money down, then you suddenly realize that your 500 quid you pulled out for the whole weekend you did one night, you're not going back. The whole thing has changed. It's an age thing. There's people are not drinking as much. People are more health conscious. I saw an article the other day that said apparently the 65-year-olds go out more than young people now. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because we still remember how to party, and we can still stagger home. But I think also, but it's the cost of everything, as I say. Look, I mean, I hate to be fucking political, but everything from the tube train to your tax to your bill to, you can't earn a few bob on the side now and go to spend it in a nightclub. Nobody takes cash, and all that sort of stuff. You just can't do anything. All those bits and pieces that as a youth you used to do, and all the thing. And then you ask yourself what for, and if you meet the girl of your dreams in a nightclub, you can't go back again because you can't afford it. When I got involved in nightclubs, it was a big pot of gold. One night you could only have to buy yourself a Porsche. The sad thing is that the next night you could have to give it back. But nowadays you can't make that sort of money on the up nights to compensate for the down nights. I mean, it doesn't make any sense really, renting a premises in the middle of the West End for 52 weeks for a year and only open 2 days a week, unless you can make that huge amount of money. So I think you've got to be careful, but we've all got to be bold. There are some amazing success stories still, but you've got to be prepared. And I think the big difference is look, we had a discussion at the beginning when I said I was very drunk for most of the beginning. So it was a matter of luck, being in the right place at the right time. And perhaps if I'd have been sober, I might not have done as many stupid things as I would. But now you have to work. You have to work. There's nothing except, well, I'm sure you and your venue, I'm sure you're washing the glasses when you need to.